Sanbonani. Good morning. How are you? I'd like to get to this session of Society's moon readings. Oh, I'm trying to set up a second. Vibes. It's gonna have to do. Okay. How are you this morning? I hope that you are doing well. The winter season is well and truly upon us. Lapha eMzansi, we are feeling it. It's been quite the week. And such an exciting week as well, with everything that's been happening with respect to our new Pope and all of this. And my fascination with that is entirely pagan, although I was raised Catholic. But there's some things around the entire structure of the Catholic Church that are essentially based on pagan practices, which makes them so fascinating to me. And it's just every time, in the past few weeks, as we've been watching the processions and the different ceremonies and different masses going on, and people going into church and saying, "This is not how I remember church," or "This is not the church I know." And that is literally the thing with the Catholic Church, is how deeply rooted in pagan ritual it is, and how much that actually shows up within the rituals that the church performs. And the church itself as a political institution rather than religious. And when we look at it from that perspective, it changes so much of how we understand what we're looking at when we look at the Catholic Church. And I think in the coming weeks, I'll definitely do a video just about that. But today, I would like to focus on this upcoming full moon in Scorpio, which we're going to be seeing on Monday, the 12th of May. And it is going to be very interesting indeed. I think this is a moon where you have definitely been feeling it for some time. If you don't know who we are or why we're here, this is Sangoma Society, where we demystify the astral and the ancestral. Mina Makhosi Nomabutho Emsamo, and I am Honey Tell a Story on all social media platforms. I am Uhani Wagamakwakwa to my parents. So when we're looking at this upcoming full moon, the sun is going to be in Taurus, the moon is in Scorpio. So essentially, every time you have a full moon, you have the sun and the moon in opposite signs. It's Taurus season, so that is where the sun is, and it is the full moon, so it is going to be in Scorpio. We already know that Scorpio is governed by the eighth house in the zodiac, which means it's the place of death, the place of grief, where things go when they need to die. Yo, hey, yo, Makhosi. It is also the place of abashonile, your ancestors. So when we look at this moon, we look at the time, especially for us in this part of the world. This is the time yokuqiniswa. We are well and truly going into the darkest months of winter now, and this is the time when you set yourself up um, for the safest path through winter, which is imindeni iyaqiniswa, amakhaya ayaqiniswa. You are fortified for the winter months. Um, in the last moon, we had the last harvest moon. So already your grain stores, your plan for how you're going to get through the next 6 months should already be, you know, done and dusted, and your participation in your community and how you plan to show up, that should be done by now. You should know that by now. If you don't, get it together, because right now what you are going to need to focus on is yourself, your immediate family. Oh, yo, Makhosi. I'm feeling a heaviness in the heart chakra with this moon here. And it is because it's coming with so much baggage. This full moon is not just showing up um, as a good time to do the shadow work and talking about, things that you may have noticed in the last couple of weeks. No, the heaviness that we're feeling at this moment in time is all the grief that we've been speaking about over the course of like the last, it's more than, is it 6 weeks? It's 6 weeks. It's around 6 weeks that we've been having the conversation, because when Lilith moved into Scorpio on the 27th of March. That was just 3 days before Venus went retrograde. And we spoke about how that retrograde is a time for you to let things go, especially when we're talking about relationships that aren't working, dynamics, just not necessarily only romantic relationships, but relationships in general, having a look at those and how they are playing out in your life and how they are or aren't benefiting you. You would have seen during the Venus retrograde how that would have been so intense. And then that new moon that came, I think it was at the end of April, just coinciding with with Easter, that Easter weekend. That new moon that we had there came on the same day as Venus stationed direct, and it really demanded a sacrifice. And if you still were unable to break off the relationships that you needed to break off, and you're still holding on and you're still contemplating and trying to figure it out, you have probably felt the pain of continuing to participate in relationships that have not been serving your highest good. You have probably in the past 2 weeks really been feeling those triggers. It would have been really an emotionally charged time. And when we saw the transits coming into the new moon that we had recently, they were so incredible. We had the sun squaring opposite Black Moon Lilith. We had Pluto opposite Mars, and it was just again saying it is time to make a sacrifice. What is it that you say you want to see come into fruition in your life? And what is no longer serving you in your life? Because the thing that you're holding on to and you're so afraid to let go of, that is the seed of grief that this season is asking for. You plant that seed of grief at this moment in time, and you will see it come to fruition in the final quarter of this year. It is difficult to let go of things, but that is the cycle of nature, that nothing is born without death. Death is what brings rebirth, and there are things that we have been carrying. There is a pattern that you'll be feeling at this moment in time, something that didn't just come up now, but revisited your consciousness in the last 6 weeks. But where you would have first seen this pattern or noticed this occurrence in your life would have been in um, mid May of 2022. We had a full moon eclipse in Scorpio that year when the South Node was in Scorpio. And with that um, eclipse, it would have felt that was a really like light eclipse, like it would have just, you need to go back to your journals. This is how you're going to trace this. You're going to go back to your journals. Now, the eclipse on the surface was a very light, um, it really pushed things up in like a wave coming from underneath. But it would have upheaved or uprooted something that you had not noticed or been fully conscious of, something that has played out and unraveled as a pattern that you've noticed in the last 36 months of your life. This is something on a soul contract level. It is not something light in the spirit. When it first came up, you may not have seen how deep it was rooted within you. But then, if you go back to November 2022 and you look at the occurrences of that month and what was coming up for you, that's where you would have seen how deeply this was coming up for you, right? And if you look at that moon cycle and like the izinto bowubalabala ngazo, um, the things that were on your heart, that were keeping your heart chakra closed, that were keeping you from feeling a sense of safety, the things that were bringing up a lot of questions for you, the things that you were really triggered around, the things that were coming up almost out of left field, just in terms of when you were connecting with other people, there would have been this pattern that would have come up that you would have seen rearing its head in November of 2022. And where it was first brought to the surface would have been May of 2022. But when it first came to the surface, it wasn't like deep. But by the time we got to November, it was cutting. It was starting to hit the white meat, and you were starting to feel the pain of that. Now, those are the karmic cycles that this full moon in Scorpio is bringing to light, the shadow aspect that we're here to integrate with this full moon in Scorpio. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is even the significance of integrating a shadow? What is the purpose? You know, the thing with our shadow selves is that there is a part of us which is unconsciously showing up in this world, showing up in times of pressure, showing up even in our decision making unconsciously, where we're just making decisions on a predicated set of rules and belief systems that are not necessarily primed to allow us to see reality as it presents itself in the moment. I want to use an example that's a bit topical at the moment, but I don't think, I'm just going to go for it. In the recent weeks, there was this video that went viral with the pop the balloons. And it was a beautiful, statuesque, dark skinned lady. And she had popped her balloon. And there was this gentleman, he was light skinned. I think he had like cornrows or dreadlocks that were twisted down. And he was dressed really nicely. She's tall, he's tall. Like he gets to her and the interviewer, says she's popped her balloon, but like, what would you have to say to her? And he was like, if there was anybody in this lineup that he would have hoped would not have popped her balloon, it would have been her, because that's the first person that caught his eye. And she said, she popped her balloon on the basis of past experience, being that men who looked like him would not look at a girl who looks like her because she's dark skinned and he's light skinned. And that's a shadow. Now, there's a lot of people who've come out after that video saying, that's not insecurity, that's, protecting yourself, etc. But that's what the shadow does. The shadow has been formed by the things that we had to survive. It is always looking for where the danger might be and preemptively striking or defending or throwing up walls so that we don't have to re-experience the trauma that necessitated that belief that is what the shadow is now constituted of, right? So sometimes it looks like counting yourself out. Sometimes it looks like fighting where there is no conflict. Sometimes it looks like believing in something that is not the truth of what reality is feeding you at that moment. So, for instance, in this example that we've made with the woman in the balloon popping scenario, if she had just looked at this man in that moment and read him and the signals that he was giving, which is he's looking over, catching eye contact and trying to deduce from there and determining from her own preference whether she would like to be qualified and in the running to be chosen, she would not have popped her balloon because she did find him attractive. But because she was acting from her shadow, she preemptively disqualified herself from the conversation. And that's what our shadows look like. So when it is time for us to integrate a shadow, typically what happens is that a trigger will arise. So if you will look at now the last 6 weeks, there might be a trend of triggers, things that have just been coming up out of nowhere, making life like as though you're walking through a minefield where it's like you step here and boom, it's that thing again. You step there and boom, some way somehow this thing just keeps finding a way to pop out and destabilize you emotionally, right? That's the trigger. The trigger is showing you where you need to put your focus at this moment, where it is that your conscious mind now feels ready. It feels like I have the tools to deal with the underlying beliefs that make this thing such a big, scary thing for me to deal with. Now I have the tools and the capacity within the conscious mind to deal with this. And the sacrifice that you are making when you integrate the shadow is the sacrifice of the limiting belief. You have to surrender the belief that, because X, then Y. You have to accept that this is not the truth of what reality is telling me in this moment. You surrender that limiting belief by going into the events that formed it, the things that you had to survive. You're going back into that place and you're healing the part of you that had to survive those things. And your conscious mind only brings these things to the surface when the person you have become now no longer needs the crutches of those limiting beliefs in order for you to show up in this world as your whole self, as your strongest self. If you want to know a sneaky, sneaky way that our shadows dress up as, those things we call our superpowers. Anytime you start talking about a superpower, my superpower is not needing attention. My superpower is being able to cut somebody off. My superpower is being able to walk away. Those things are formed from things you had to survive. Give the part of yourself that had to survive this thing, whatever it was, an opportunity to sit with the experience of what happened to you. Yo, wait, yo, Makhosi, yo, Makhosi. To sit with the truth of what happened to you and grieve that it happened. Because most of the time, the experiences that have built this resilience in us were things that we had no business surviving at the time when we were surviving them. And the parts of ourselves that had to focus on just getting through it, just surviving, just getting from that day to the next, those parts of ourselves are still worthy of love, of affection, of consideration. And that is what the shadow work is for. And that is what this moon is for, because at this moment in time, Black Moon Lilith, the darkest point in the night sky, is in Scorpio, and the moon is also in Scorpio. And all of these triggers that have been building up and building up, and that pressure that you're feeling, it's not because of nothing. It is a time for you to do this work. In this house, how we do the shadow work is through clearing into consciousness. It's a 3-day full moon ritual. We start with opening up the portal to understand what we are actually feeling, going deeper into that portal to find out the truth behind the feelings that we're feeling, and then closing it out with a release of all the things that no longer serve us, so that we can step into the opportunities that these transits represent. because what we're going to be looking at just after this full moon, a few days after the full moon, 5 days, we're going to have the Sun conjunct Uranus at 27 degrees in Taurus. So the planet Uranus, the planet of revolution, the planet, the wild card in the sky, which is in Taurus, which is it's a revolutionary material space. The things that we see in the material world, seeing material change, that energy is going to be peaking on the 17th of May. This is the last time we're going to see a Sun Uranus conjunction for the next 84 years. So, pretty much in our lifetime, we're never going to see this happening again. And what this transit is going to bring is enlightenment, where we're going to see a revelation. There's going to be some secrets that will probably be revealed, especially because the moon is governed by Pluto, and Pluto is currently retrograde. So that also is an ideal time for these revelations. And Uranus itself is just that placement. When we see it cazimi in the sun like this, we're seeing a revelation that can allow us to make material change happen in our lives right now. And then the following day, we're going to have Jupiter in Gemini squaring the lunar nodes, squaring the north node in Pisces and the south node in Virgo. So again, an expansion, an expansive possibility. This energy from the moon itself, from the full moon, and right through these transits as we go all the way to the end of the month, actually, with even when Saturn enters Aries. These transits are speaking of a lasting change, right? If you remember the new moon, we had the same request to do the shadow work, to integrate, to look at what it is that we're running from at this moment in time, to stop running and sit with it and confront it. We're still there. It is still asking that of us. But at this moment in time, we're in the last chance saloon. And the thing about it is that it's not opportunistic. These transits are materially tangible shifts in how we experience ourselves in the world, and not just a personal experience, but the material manifestation of how we show up in the world, how we see, how we manifest the things that we want in this world, especially when we go to the end of the month, the 24th of this month, we will be seeing Saturn moving into Aries. And it is now finally that shift from dreaming about the things that you are willing to do and actually getting to do them. Saturn is the planet of work. It requires action. It is not a planet that many people like, but it is one that we all have to come to terms with. And It's been asking us for the last couple of years, 2.5 years, about what is it that you're willing to do for your dreams. And maybe you've been thinking about it and you've been formulating, and now is the time to take action. Do the thing. Do the thing that you've been thinking about. This is when you take action. The action that you take now will carry. It will not be futile. It will not be superficial. It will not be fleeting. It will not be a fling. The actions you take now can take root in your life and plant seeds that you will benefit from for years to come. And if you're not seeing the immediate benefit, trust in the process and wait for that last quarter of the year and see how everything that you're putting in now plays out then. And if it feels heavy right now, if it feels heavy, remember that what you're being asked to do is to take this weight that you're carrying and put it down. Put it down. Stop thinking that it ends with you. Stop believing that it's up to you and only you to make sense of this, to no. Bring your ancestors into this conversation. Surrender what you're carrying. Tell them how you can't carry it anymore. It can be so scary when we are asked to surrender, when we are asked to step into faith. But, you know, this moment, this full moon happens with Pluto having just gone retrograde, and the power of the phoenix is within this retrograde, and it will station direct in that final quarter of this year. And if you understand the legend of the phoenix and what it represents, it is rebirth, death by fire, and rebirth. And when it is reborn, when we see that sun coming in to Scorpio in the final quarter of the year, at the end of October this year, then we'll be seeing the eagle rising, that perspective that Scorpio can have of being able to see the light in the darkness, being able to see the magic in sacrifice, being able to understand what it is to alchemize the human experience, to turn poison into medicine. This is karmic integration. This is the work you're doing now is not just from this lifetime. Any heaviness you're feeling with this moon is not just from this lifetime. This is soul contract work. It is deep, and giving it your attention will bring you lasting answers, answers that will integrate into your perspective for the rest of your life. You will understand yourself as a person differently if you give this moment your attention. It is such a benefit. It is such a benefit. I don't know. I think perhaps it's because I'm a Scorpio sun. I really, really always feel as though, you know, the gift of what it is um, to have Scorpio transits is always something I value so much because endings can be daunting, grieving can be difficult, but the promise of a new beginning coming from that Scorpio always keeps for me is it's always worth it. It's always worth it. Even though the path of surrender can be difficult, but that's what the whole journey of Scorpio is. When you think of this full moon, remember Scorpio, and in its darkest, most basic, most unevolved aspect, manifestation is the scorpion, desert scorpion, reactive. It cannot see up high, it cannot gain any perspective. All it does is attack, attack, attack in response to any threat, right? But then you go through a transit like what this full moon is going to be, and the phoenix, which is the second manifestation of scorpionic energy, and that is rebirth. Rebirth by fire, allowing everything to burn in the fire so that the phoenix can rise. And when you go through that alchemic process and you allow it to be what it is, you get that final manifestation of what Scorpio can be, which is the wise eagle flying high above everything, seeing cause and effect, understanding karmic purpose. And that brings grace, that brings an understanding that only the wisdom of experience can bring. You see, the reason why we do these readings, ebunyangin, is to be able to differentiate things which are happening in your life, which are within a season, versus things which are happening in your life because of your own action, your own karma, and things that are happening in your life because of outward interference. If you cannot discern between these things, then you don't know how to show up for a moment that you might be in. You might try to fight something you are supposed to surrender to. You might miss the lesson, or you might find yourself accepting something that you have no business accepting. Yours is to do the work, introspect, sit with yourself, recognize that pattern, and then you will be able to differentiate what is what. Looking at the events around May 2022, November 2022, and what has been coming up within the same theme over the course of the last 6 weeks from March 27th up until now. And that will give you a clear idea of the shadow aspects that you need to integrate Yo, yo, yo. Makhosi, the limiting beliefs that you need to let go of, and perhaps any trickery that needs to be addressed. Because again, it is that time of year where us in the Southern Hemisphere should be fortifying ourselves, looking ahead into the winter months. Yo! Makhosi, Makhosi. Bageti, this has been the full moon reading from us here at Sangoma Society. It has been a privilege to be in your presence, and I look forward to seeing you inside Clearing into Consciousness. I hope that this reading has given you perspective about the intention that you will set for this full moon and how to approach it as we go into the shadow work. We're back online. We'll definitely be debriefing together. Whew, get ready for it. It's going to be major. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be transformative. I hope that it brings you the light that you seek. Kudedu ubumnyama kuvela ukukhanya, Makhosi, Makhosi.